special emergency season 4 of the Green Noise podcast.
74,000 hectares of the Cederberg burnt.
Life-threatening within about 30 seconds.
And what happens now?
A runaway fire is a different monster completely.
Green Noise podcast brought to you by CapeNature. Welcome back to Green Noise, a CapeNature podcast giving voice to nature. My name is Dan Corder, your host. If you're listening, let me paint the picture for you. I am sitting in a desolate, burnt-out wasteland on the very edge of shoots of green because this special podcast, what's an emergency season of the CapeNature Green Noise podcast, is about the Cederberg and these devastating fires that have ripped through many valleys and large swathes of land here in the Cederberg, around Algeria site, all the way through 8 Cake Pass and beyond. And in this episode, I bring you two more, I don't even know where the term came from in history, but two more, I'm going to say, big kahunas of conservation, fire risk management, and the rest onto this episode. Really, really delighted. I want to tell you a little bit about Patrick Ryan. You may have been exposed to some of his work as a wildlife photographer, but he's also moved into disaster risk management. He's developed formal courses, including the first one of its kind in South Africa that I'm going to ask him about in a second, that help people to learn how to deal with mitigating risk in disaster risk management areas. And also the conservation manager for the Swartberg World Heritage Site of CapeNature, Kgaugelo Shadung, is also here. And Kgaugelo spends a lot of time thinking about conservation and how to manage crucial, beloved biomes better to make sure that they respect, honor, and uphold wildlife, but are also places where humans can enjoy and learn to love more and to appreciate more about nature. Guys, thank you. Oh, big kahunas. Thank you so much to the both of you for being here. I hope there were no lies in that introduction, Patrick. Were there any lies?
No, it was accurate except for the wildlife. I was in advertising. So it was a very bizarre 180 shift into the world that I'm involved with now.
And how did you end up in disaster risk management involved in fires?
I was back in Cape Town after living in London for 10 years, and I in 2009, saw a big fire burn on Devil's Peak. The photographer in me was fascinated, so I grabbed my camera. I went up onto the mountain the next day and did everything you shouldn't do, and I'll tell people not to do, which was walk into the burnt area that was still hot and burning with firefighters in it. And I took photographs of the people involved in this, as well as the devastation that I saw then. I know better now, but devastation of the scene, and that's had a powerful impact on me. And I realized that there was a story to be told here. I then contacted the volunteer wildfire services. I'd done some ads for them in the past and found out how I could get onto the fire line with them. And they said I needed to do training. So I did training with them. Through that training, it just triggered off that sense of adventure that I have in me. And next thing is I ended up joining, sort of helping run the organization for a while, and then saw a gap in the market to move into more of a sort of professional area within wildfire management.
And tell me about this company that you now run.
We focus very much on, I think, the forgotten areas of wildfire management, and that's the risk mitigation, risk reduction, awareness, and trying to help people, very much private landowners and large landowners, in understanding what their risk is and how they can reduce it. And we offer solutions in that area as well.
Super interesting.
As well as training.
And you actually wrote about you at least investigated and reported in some ways on the Knysna fires in 2017.
We were commissioned by the Western Cape government to do a lessons learned report on the Knysna fires. And so we went up during the fires and then after the fires to interview all of the major stakeholders. And from that, we put a lessons learned report together with a sort of a guide of and it wasn't our voice, it was the voice of the people as to what the solutions could be. And that was then produced and has been a kind of a guide to people to try and find solutions and sort of reduce the risk in various stages of success.
Certainly a big kahuna. I still don't know what that means. Kgaugelo, you work in a very, very similar vein, right? So you are originally from Limpopo, but have ended up down this area of the world, managing a vast area of land. Swartberg, it's obviously a World Heritage Site. Didn't you say, I think it's 130,000 hectares or something? It's extraordinary.
It is one of the biggest nature reserves in CapeNature, actually.
Yeah.
So we have 131,000 hectares and then 51,000 of mountain catchment area. So yeah, it is huge, very complex, with 5 sections. it's got Klein Swartberg and then Gamka Stloof, and then we have Gamka Poort, and then Groot Swartberg, then Swartberg East. So it's a very, very, very big World Heritage Site.
I don't know if either of you has been to the Cederberg since these extraordinary, devastating fires. Is this both of your first time in this area since the fires?
It is, yeah.
That's my second time.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was here during this fire, but very late. I came here on the New Year's Day.
That was in the last 5 days, right? Because on the 22nd to the 5th.
Yeah, so there was still section of the reserve that was burning towards Citrusdal. It's like it was a huge fire. I mean, that's like 30 kilometers to Citrusdal. So, yeah, it was very interesting to come through the site.
What was it like? Describe that day or those days when you were here from New Year's.
The fire was no longer raging like the few days I saw on social media. Sometimes the flames, when they are 5-6 meters, it's scary. But we walked through one of the kloofs to get to the area where it was still just smoldering. But we got to request area resource, because when the temperatures are rising and it start flaming and became a problem for the team. So we had to request some area resource. It was very interesting.
Like the scale of it, right? Like how enormous the devastation was. Was it upsetting? I mean, I know you mentioned that you were fearful also, which is a perfectly reasonable response.
Yeah, I mean, it burned around 52 to 53,000 hectares. That's big.
And that was the second burn, because the one before, a few weeks before, was 20,000 on its own.
Yeah, and then there's one of 1988, which was 58,000. There's a publication by Tinek Kraai and Brian van Welgen. They did indicate that it was a very, very huge fire at that time.
For sure.
So it is still I don't think there's any other reserve that's got a record-breaking size of such a fire.
Patrick, you've seen many enormous burns. You are familiar with some of the devastation that's happened in places like Knysna before. As a photographer, or when you were taking photographs, tell me about your impression as you've driven in here, looking at these slopes completely blackened. It's extraordinary behind the cameras. It's green and lush the way it used to be, just there at the Algeria site.
Yeah, it was actually very interesting that the interview was done here and driving in. Our company was commissioned to do one of the pre-attack plans for Algeria Valley. So we kind of understood the risk here. And when the fire was burning into here, I was wondering, how the plan was assisting with the management of that. There was a prescribed burn that was done here 2 years ago around these offices, which I think also helped with reduce the ability for the fire to actually impact heavily on the structures. But it's pretty cooked in areas. It's definitely burned through here. And I think it's, again, just shows the intensity of the fires that we are experiencing now. We seem to be seeing more fires get bigger and more, not necessarily bigger, but more intense very quickly, which completely overwhelms suppression resources.
So let's talk about that. So your company, Vulcan Resolutions, did what you just described as a pre-attack plan. What does that mean?
We've come into the area. We'll do interviews with all the stakeholders in the area. Gather information, drive around, look at areas of risk, take GPS coordinates of assets, risk areas, high hazard areas, what the roads are like, and then all that gets put together into a large A1 size map, which also includes basically predetermined actions that a commander can take, or incident commander can take, if they are coming in to manage a fire. So there's they know who to contact, who's got resources, what the resources are, where they are, where are residents who are in high-risk homes who might need to be evacuated early. So all of that is determined beforehand, and as soon as a fire occurs or is moving into that area, that plan can be put into place. And it also assists firefighters who are coming in who aren't familiar with the area. They can use that map to guide them around and sort of understand what they're driving down. Is the road a high hazard road or low hazard, and what they can expect.
So what are the particular challenges of trying to create a pre-attack plan for an area like this in the Cederberg, which is so almost uniquely indifferent to human life?
Yeah, exactly. Good quote. Yeah, I mean, Algeria was probably the easier one. We also did one for the greater Cederberg area. And that was a real challenge. I mean, just logistically, driving around. Luckily, Ravan, who's did the on-the-ground work, has a solid old Land Rover that made it through passes and roads and stuff. But it's the logistical challenge of such a large area, trying to get across it, meet the people, and then understand that these areas have risk. And then if a fire happens, how do you get assistance to those people in time, considering the distances, the fact that roads are not always passable, and then are people able to manage their own sort of fire suppression until bigger help arrives?
Exactly, because I mean, so there are a handful of ways in and out of this exact valley, but in a very literal way, if the fire starts on 8 Cape Pass, you can only go that way, the other way, and then it's very, very challenging. There's like a gravel road, but it goes very, very high up. It's a very, very sheer drop on the sides, and that must be very difficult. I just actually remember, Kgaugelo, you were talking about flooding. I remember being in this part of the Cederberg last year and trying to drive out through 8 Cape Pass during a storm, and even that on like the tarred part of it, very, very nerve-wracking. The clouds and the rain are as low as the road is. It's hard. It's a hard area.
Flash floods are, I mean, we experienced that I've not been too further to that side, but yeah, flash floods are very damaging, especially, you see with this fire now, there's going to be a lot of erosion afterwards.
Yes.
If we're going to, I mean, we're approaching winter. Just after Easter, we're going to be approaching winter. And a lot of times, I'm not sure about this area, but in your Oudtshoorn area where I'm from, there's always flooding around late March.
So it feels like for both of you both are having to think more and more and more about extreme weather events. And it feels almost as though I've been speaking to different people over the course of this emergency season. And it feels like for most people, there's something happening in the air or literally in the climate or the environment which is causing fires to rage longer, be more intense. I don't know if you've experienced this, Patrick, or if you have a view on whether or not it's becoming a harder challenge to preempt danger, mitigate risk with the changing patterns of the weather and the seasons in this part of the world.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, as humans, we're not great with understanding risk, or if we do understand it, we're particularly bad at reacting and actioning on reducing that risk, and that carries through into all areas of disaster management. But with fire being my focus area, I've actually worked closely with an honours student in the last year who did a study into a very specific area around Cape Town, but looking at extreme wildfire conditions. And what happens in these conditions is you get fires called extreme wildfire events.
Okay.
That's what they're termed. Media's been jumping on calling mega fires, but it's more about the intensity than the size. Right. So a small fire like the fire near UCT can cause a lot of damage. And what his study showed was there are 3 times in the year where you have the weather conditions conducive to extreme wildfire events occurring. So if a fire breaks out into those at that time of year where it's very low humidity, a big vapor pressure difference, and sort of vegetation overload and stuff, you're going to have very, very extreme, very intense fires occurring. And it was interesting to see. It was September, October, January, February, and April, May, if I'm correct. He might correct me. And those, especially the ones out of the main summer period, were for me very interesting, and that's something that needs to be taken note of. And it ties in with quite a few of the bad fires we've seen recently. That out of season timing.
Is it starting to make you guys change the way that you think about risk mitigation and the strategies that you do? I mean, I think you mentioned just a little while ago that there was a preemptive burn here a few years ago around Algeria. Can you describe that strategy for mitigating serious future wildfires?
Within integrated fire management, you're looking at basically a large variety of tools that you can draw from prescribed burning, from stack burning, which is felled, normally invasive vegetation, fell that you can use or burn, to fuel breaks and fuel reduction zones, which is something we try and get homeowners and private landowners to understand about how to manage the vegetation. And by doing that and understanding the risk to their structure, you reduce the risk of impact to that. So it's about awareness and understanding what the vulnerabilities are to structural loss. And that is starting to become, people are getting more interested in it, but we've been driving the message for years now.
And Kgaugelo, you also have serious fire challenges in your conservation area in Swartberg. Can you tell us about a few of the fires that have been happening and kind of the strategies and thoughts that you have to put in place to prevent them in future?
So the biggest fires I had, there were 2, 2016 in December and early 2016 and late 2016. That's very frequent fires, which is not good for fynbos.
What area in the Swartberg region was it? I mean, you said it's so enormous.
I
where
did
were
mention
they?
that I've got 5 sections.
Yes.
So in the Groot Swartberg, which is from Kgaugelo towards the east, when you get to Maringspoort on
Yes.
the N12,
Yes.
then you jump over to Swartberg East. So that section of Groot Swartberg had a very huge fire. It was around 22,000 hectares.
And what kind of vegetation was that, or what kind of area?
So we're moving from Fynbos and it's moving to what's Prince Albert in the northern side. There's a Renosterveld biome that side. So it bends very quick compared to the Fynbos. So
And was this kind of open felt, or was it close to towns, close to people's homes?
the good thing about Swartberg, it's got buffer zones. So there's farms before the towns, as compared to areas like your George and your Cape Town, where there's a urban interface, which is a big challenge when the people, citizens, they complain and they start panicking. So with farmers, you got the farm there, another one 20 kilometer, and there is some of the landowners who are very cooperative with each other and with CapeNature. So most of the fires, we do annual plan of operation. We plan all the fire breaks. Would at least do around 6 to 10 fire breaks, and most of the fire breaks we got a cycle. On the southern side of the reserve, we cut them in 3 years because it drains a lot.
Okay.
This side from the coast side. So northern side is drier. So cycle would be 5 years plus 6 at 7 or 10 years.
Okay. So how big did these two fires in 2016 get? Were they raging for days?
2 weeks at least, maximum 2 weeks. One was from a picnic site and it went through.
Sure.
So that is people. And then the other one was lightning, that when it sit up the mountain, there's nothing much you actually would do. There's a safety issue.
You're from Limpopo, so that's normal.
But the Western Cape actually got the high altitude compared to the Limpopo side.
So for the Swartberg region now in 2026, it's been 10 years since two very, very large, serious fires. But are you preparing now for the next one? Is it at a part of a cycle now, or have there been drier months or years recently which make it more likely that there'll be bad fires in your conservation area?
I'm having fires every year.
But that bad, I mean.
So that bad, I don't think so, because we have at least 90% of the reserve actually has banned.
Oh, wow.
It is not good though. So if you look, there's a policy in the 1950 to 74. They used to have a fire exclusion where they sort of banned fires.
Okay.
74 to 80, then they had strategies of prescribed bans. And then after that, we got to... So during the prescribed ban, there were a lot of forestry guys knew how to do this block bans.
I see.
This is before my time. Very skilled people. Then after that, we moved into the natural burning zone. So we just let the fire to burn, we monitor it and make sure it doesn't come to infrastructure. And then from there, we moved to interference now with the... so we intervene. Any fire that starts, we have to put it out as soon as possible, because we're trying to save the fynbos species. So in Swartberg, we got Protea prenosa. It's one of the endangered species there. It's a frost protea. Sort of it is adapted to alpine zones, that kind of altitude where the snow adapted and so on. And it struggles to actually grow it doesn't grow very fast compared to the other proteas. So one of the areas last year we tried to ban the section so that we can recover that, but we could not do that because of the wind period is very, very, very limited. The wind just started picking up after 11. It was warm like this, but then it changed. So we had to abandon the clouds coming down to the area where we wanted to ban. So yeah, we just left. We tried to have it this year, but because we had too many fires now, there's just a lot of people having fear to start fires as well after this disaster in the whole province.
Patrick, I wanted to ask, so from the lessons learned from the Knysna fires in 2017, what were the most important findings for you from that report that we should be thinking about in a place like the Cederberg this year and all across the Cape?
There were quite a few findings, but I think key for that was the value in the Fire Protection Association system as a system for management of areas and for raising the awareness of what wildfire risk is and how to mitigate that risk, and the responsibilities as a landowner, your legal responsibilities as well as your responsibilities neighborly to each other, and understanding the litigation aspects of that. So I think that's kind of was a key learning, and what came out of it was that unfortunately hasn't been addressed is looking at things like town planning and how town planning can actually become much more effective at reducing the risk. Areas where building takes place, which you're seeing, in areas in LA and places like that now, but areas where building can take place, how that building, is going to be done. And unfortunately, there's a lot of repetition going on where people are building back the same way that they built. So the risk is just stays. And then I think, looking at areas where insurers and the reinsurers can get involved and put a lot more pressure on their clients to reduce their risk and help educate as well as, put pressure on. So it's the stick and the carrot kind of approach. I think with the right approach, you can reduce the risk. But we know that humans are not great at adopting stuff unless they're kind of forced to, or there's a will to do it. And I think finding that will is key to kind of what drives a lot of what we do as a company. Yeah.
And I have to ask, because your journey with fires started, in your words, without the wisdom that you have now, heading straight into a wildfire zone and taking pictures. Do you miss that at all?
I still take pictures.
Okay, so you don't miss it at all. What is so thrilling or attractive or exciting in a way about getting this close to something this dangerous and potentially devastating?
There's a kind of dance with nature, and I think, to be honest, there's probably a element of vitality and life that you feel. But the longer I've been in this, the more I realize the extreme danger and how quickly things change. Literally, a situation can go from benign to life-threatening within about 30 seconds. It can change that quickly in trying to get to safety. So having situation awareness, being out there, understanding the environment that I'm in, it's a little bit like being a war photographer in that you've got to understand the conditions. You've got to be able to read the indicators while staying focused on capturing the imagery. And the whole idea was to bring powerful imagery in to convey what it is to be in the face of fire as a wildland firefighter to the public who don't get to see that. Although more and more we're seeing people running in with cell phones into areas of danger. But the idea was to allow people to see what the experience is for a wildland firefighter. It's hot. It's risky. It's hard. It's not easy.
Can you give me an example of a time where something? I mean, have you been in a situation where something has switched from like manageable to we're in actual danger in 30 seconds to a minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of that?
Two examples. The one was both times it's about seeing indicators and predicting what's coming. And again, that's through, so having the training and the experience. And as a photographer, I'm looking for that image. So I'm aware that something can change. And I'm also looking to see if the firefighters, how they're going to be responding. I can't be a hindrance to them at the same time I'm trying to catch a good shot. So yeah, recently I had an experience where we had to move out to a safety zone very quickly. And within 30 seconds, the area was erupting with fire and embers and an ember storm and heat wash. And it was where we had to move very quickly to get to a safety zone.
Wow.
In fact, one of my sort of favorite photos was from 2 years ago. It was capturing a firefighter or two firefighters having to turn and run from the face of fire as it turned on them.
Sure.
And I positioned myself because I could see it coming. So I positioned myself to be able to capture them running and still get out safely.
Wow. It must be hectic.
It gets quite intense.
Yeah. Do you sometimes go, oh, that was a bit close?
Only twice in my life.
Only twice in your life? Yeah. So far.
No, those moments they really are. They are kind of little wake up calls, and it's a very powerful force. It changes so fast.
Yeah, what do you think? So, like in all of this attempt to take photographs that can portray the kind of unknown intensity and difficulty of being a land firefighter, what do you think the public doesn't know that they should?
I think they still don't understand the hard work put in by the guys on the ground, and that without the teams on the ground, you wouldn't have these successes. There's so much focus on aerial, unfortunately. And yes, it's very exciting. The helicopters are epic, and they fly through, and it's the sound, and it's dropping water, and it's very visual. It appeals to a lot, but the real proper work is done by the guys on the ground, and it's not fully appreciated in South Africa. We don't have the professional services, we don't have the recognition of the people, the training, the support, the financial reward to the people on the ground that we do overseas.
And Kgaugelo, you were like nodding vigorously when Patrick was saying that land firefighters deserve more praise, attention, and support. I wanted to end with you as a conservationist at a top level for CapeNature. What do you think is needed to strengthen firefighting efforts on all levels, from firefighters fighting fires in front of them to risk management and minimizing future threat of fires? From what you've seen, what do we need more of in 2026 in the Cape?
Well, fire season is not yet done. I mean, even during winter, we still have fires. So I think he's also into training now, a lot of training, and into the current teams. We got young generations that is not some are sort of scared. Sometimes fitness level is a bit of a challenge because we got mountain ranges here. I think the bigger thing is awareness to public that we need to use a platform like yours here and TV, even if it's maybe 30 minutes of fire awareness. I mean, we've seen a lot of series and movies on Netflix and other platforms where they show this firefighting it's a very dangerous exercise. Nature it can be. We've lost areas in Mossel Bay as well. You've seen some people losing houses. So I think awareness for people to know how to use fire, awareness for people to clear their infrastructure, to a lot of landowners. Policy making as well is another thing that I think it needs to change at the higher level. There are these international treaties on mitigating this climate change, but it should, when it comes down, sometimes it doesn't filter properly, or people don't understand it, what actually it means to fight fires. I mean, CapeNature, we're doing a lot of stuff. We're not actually firefighting organization compared to the municipalities who are. So our guys are doing trails, they're doing all kinds of stuff. Investment to technology as well need to come through. We're currently using your fireweb for periods. We're using satellite to pick up this 2026, 2027, 8 going forward. We'll get drones as well to do quick mapping of this and see where the fire is actually going. Like in Swartberg, most of the fires I've seen, they're taking same patterns. They sort of they bend with the southwest wind going to the east. But we do need a lot of investment and awareness to public. I think it's a big thing.
Yeah, so much of fighting a fire is making sure that the community is trying to make as many good decisions as possible all the time to prevent fires from happening. Well, I'm so glad that both of you are involved in trying to manage areas better and look after and protect people as well as natural biomes. Thank you so much to the both of you for your time. And thank you so much to you for watching this episode of our emergency Cederberg Fires special podcast season, or at least edition of Green Noise.